This is Sports for Real with Coach Hall. Got a few minutes to kill. Sitting out here outside of Everbank Stadium where the Jaguars are taking on the Texans. A rematch from the first time. Texans are supposed to be the top dog of the AFC South. And they started out, right now they have the best record in the South. But it's still a division as far as I'm concerned. But Jacksonville had them beat. They've been without their quarterback for the last couple of games. But they got the quarterback today. And he kind of picked up where he left off from before his injury, and that's anything. However, the true nature of football showed his head today when Lawrence was sliding in the quarter. You know, quarterbacks, they can slide and giving themselves up without facing any contact. Well, that's what Lawrence did. But one of the Texans, he went old school on him and laid him out while he was sliding. Of course, unsportsmanlike conduct penalties were thrown, but more importantly, the hit was considered vicious enough that Evan Ingram of the Jaguars took offense to it, and a melee ensued. Well, when they finally got the melee cleared up, they kicked a couple. They finally got the melee cleared up, and as the player was being ejected for the Texans, he decided he wants to take on the whole Jaguars sideline, and they had to get him out of there because the bench had cleared again, and they had to clear that up. But magically, when you play football and a vicious hit takes place, or a pure act of brutality, then what happens is it wakes football players up. When you play passive and not giving it your most physical best, then you're going to get the short end of the stick. And that's pretty much what Jacksonville has been doing. They haven't been playing physical enough. On defense, they rarely blitz. Well, today they came out blitzing a little bit, and they had a lot of success. Even got to Stroud a couple of times, and that plays a huge mental effect on both teams. Well, when the player was kicked out of the game, Jaguars all of a sudden started to run the football a little bit. And since then, they've been close to scoring a touchdown. They got a holding penalty on the goal line right before halftime, so they had to settle for a field goal, and they just tied it up with another field goal. So we are about midway through the third quarter, and it's a 6-6 ball game. Jaguars are not a bad team. They're just that they're not a bad team. They just bad luck. And when you get the quarterback, he returns. You think he's going to do something, and he gets laid out. That's just the way it is. But so be it. I'm getting all these corny comments, but I'm not even worried about that. I'm in Jacksonville, and the Texans and the Jaguars are playing right now. Jacksonville just kicked the field goal to tie it up at 6. Surprising to some, but actually I got a $5 bet going on. I know it's not much of a bet, but I did take the Jaguars, so it's a risk on my part. Throwing good money after bad when you're dealing with those guys. But I just had a feeling that they were going to knock off the Texans today. And then when Lawrence got laid out like it did and kind of woke the team up, now they're starting to play a little bit of football, and that's all you really want to see, especially with the kind of money you pay at these pro football nowadays. But more on that later. But let's talk a little bit about what happened yesterday. We had a couple major games that was going to have major implications on the college football race. And the first one, a lot of people expected Ohio State to run off Michigan. Well, they had ideas. I told you guys 30 minutes before kickoff that in these rivalry games anything can happen. But more so than that, Michigan had a pretty good defense. And even though they had lost their star cornerback, he wasn't going to be able to play, they still had a good enough defense to compete with Ohio State. And I said to you, that if Ohio State didn't make a whole lot of errors, they should win this game. But if they started making mistakes, and even though Michigan doesn't have a bona fide quarterback, they had opportunity to do well. But I also said that I thought Ohio State would pull away in the second half, which did not happen. What ended up happening was Mr. Howard from Ohio State, he had a terrible game. Threw an interception on the goal line to give Michigan their only touchdown. He threw another interception that kept Michigan pretty much alive. So Ohio State pretty much committed suicide yesterday against Michigan. And that's the kind of thing you expect when you play a rivalry game. But what was most interesting about it, and I've been watching these teams play for over 40 years, at the end of the game, Michigan, they decided they want to they want to plant the flag in the middle of the O. Now, it didn't seem quite right for them to do that, but hey, they won the game. Why not plant your flag? Florida State years ago used to do what they call a sod cemetery. They would take a piece of the visiting field after they won a big game, and they'd take it back home and plant it in their sod cemetery. So with these new fields now, you can't really do that. But when Baker Mayfield planted the flag at Ohio State several years ago, that seemed to me more authentic. And yesterday it just didn't seem quite right, especially Michigan with the kind of year they had, where they basically telling Ohio State, we still better than you. Well, they won. And as you know, Ohio State, they're going to see them somewhere down the line. But as far as hurting their playoff chances, I don't think it hurt them very much, because you expect Oregon's probably going to get by Penn State. But if Penn State beats Oregon, that's Ohio State's place. And then it's going to come down to whether or not Ohio State can get a third spot for the Big Ten, either them or Indiana. And if it's between them and Indiana, well, they're going to get the edge over Indiana because they beat them last week. So Ohio State, a lot of people think they penciled in already. I'm not certain. They say the same thing about Georgia Bulldogs. A lot of fans are saying that Georgia, they got away with murder the other night against Georgia Tech. Now, I just happened to watch the whole game that time, and I saw some questionable calls, but I don't think that the referees were cheating for Georgia. Now that play that Dan Jackson made to cause Haynes King to fumble, that could have been called targeting because he did lower his head. As far as I'm concerned, that was a good football play. He put his helmet right on the football and he coughed it up. But by the rules today, they play soft football today. That was a penalty. They didn't call it. They missed a couple other plays they could have called that would have been detrimental to Georgia's chances, but that's just the way it goes. But Georgia survived in the 8 overtimes. But what was interesting about that particular game is that the commentator kept saying that Georgia was already in the playoffs if they were able to get by Georgia Tech, because it wouldn't matter if they had won or lost the SEC championship game. Well, I beg to differ. If you go back, IA says, hello, Jeremy, I see you. Got to do single player bets. I just need to do some bets that win. But the guy kept saying, I think his name was Tessitore, that Georgia was already in the playoffs if they can get by Georgia Tech. I beg to differ. Just a year ago, they went into the SEC championship game undefeated, and they lost to Alabama. And lo and behold, Georgia is a team that got left out. Well, I say this, with the 2 losses that Georgia have, and they're not playing that great of football right now. If they were to lose to Texas, even though they beat Texas on their own field about a month ago, they're not guaranteed. SEC looks to me right now probably going to get 2 teams. Big Ten looks going to have 3 teams, and then you're going to sprinkle it around from there. But Georgia, I don't know if they're really a playoff team at this point. They're kind of sliding backwards. But then again, once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. And if Georgia is there, they're a second half team, they're going to be a hard out. You're going to have to beat Georgia. But with the way Carson Beck is playing, you can't expect them to overcome those mistakes every single time they fall into a double-digit hole in the first half. I just don't think that's sustainable. Now, as far as Alabama goes, they lost to Oklahoma last week. They struck back and they knocked off Auburn by 2 touchdowns, which was kind of expected. Auburn's not been playing that great, but they did kind of expose Texas A&M last week, and Texas put them in a do-or-die situation with A&M, and they were able to dispatch A&M because A&M, they steady trying to run into the teeth of the Longhorns defense, especially on 4th and goal down there. The dumbest thing you ever did want to see. Fast Buck says, hello from Scotland. How you doing, Scotland? Glasses up to you. The dumbest thing you ever want to see is try to run into the middle of that Texas defense. That's like you're going to stand back in the pocket against Georgia for 7-8 seconds and think you're going to get the ball off. Not going to get anywhere remotely close to doing that. And there's some holes there that A&M needs to fix, but you got to give them a tip of the cap to come from where they came from with the bumbleness of Jimbo Fisher to Mike Elko, turn that whole program around. So you got to figure that they're on the upswing. With the kind of money they spend down there in College Station, it won't be long before that program gets turned all the way around. ISA Me Japan, comment at YouTube. I don't know what that means. I guess that means that's your site. I don't know. But hello to you. So Texas is going to get Georgia in the SEC championship game, which was a rematch from last month. And it's going to be a pretty exciting matchup. But I've been saying to you all along, the rematch in this case is going to favor Texas because they got whipped up front by Georgia. And they're going to come up with some game plan to try to circumvent what they suffered last time they played. And I think the reason for that is because you was holding on to the ball too long. When they came out with the excuse that, well, he was just coming back from injury and he wasn't his full self. Now he's his full self. What's he going to do this time when he plays against Georgia? I think he'll play a little bit better. But Georgia, like I said, they're not playing the best. I expect Texas to win the SEC, which is what I picked all along, and I also picked Texas to go and win the whole thing. But it's going to come down to who's the healthiest, and if you start getting nicked up now with all these rugged games ahead of you, you're not going to last very long. And that the theme is violence today. We saw the fight between Michigan and Ohio State, and then it was almost a fight last night between Florida State and Florida. Florida went to Tallahassee last night and knocked off Florida State 31-11. So they tried to plant the flag on Florida State's logo. Well, both teams were about to go right at it, but both head coaches just happened to be right there, and that was enough to prevent that thing from spiraling out of control. But one thing I did see, Mike Norvell told Billy Napier, said, look here, man, we ain't playing that. So if you want to take it there, we can go there. No, I'm not in Ohio Ocean, I'm in Florida. He said, if you want to take it there, we can go there, but we're not doing that. And then he went promptly over to the flag and uprooted and threw it on the ground. That was to let him know. So I don't know if they ever shook hands or not, but Napier, he got an earful from Norvell. So I don't know if that's going to be enough to inspire Florida State in the offseason, because it's being reported now that Gus Malzahn, he's going to resign as the head coach of Central Florida to be the offensive coordinator of Florida State. Now you would think, well, why would you resign from a head coach position to go be a coordinator? Well, it's not unprecedented. We talked about Ohio. Chip Kelly was the head coach at ULA. He was doing fairly well at UCLA, and he resigned to go be the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. Didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense, but you got to understand, if you're a guy that loves ball and you like coordinating the side of the ball, with your hands into what's going on, then you want to be more of a position coach. You don't want to be the head coach, because he's the guy that's going to be have to take care of the loose ends and about this, and they got to go to press conference and all of that. You don't see any of that from the assistant coaches. And sometimes guys just want to coach, especially when you get up in age. Chip Kelly, that just let you know that they still love the game and they don't want to be the head coach anymore. Malzahn is probably going to be in a hot seat anyway, so it's a good move for him to leave Central Florida. So we're going to see how that takes place. Just so you can't see what's behind me, I'm at the Everbank Stadium here. Right now, the Jaguars are taking on the Texans. Right I was coming on, the Jaguars kicked the field goal to tie it up 6-6. It should be close to the end of the third quarter. I'm going to move a little farther away in about 10 minutes. They have, I have this thing I do with media where we talk to fans and they come out of the stadium to get their feeling about what's taking place. And one of the hot button issues, cheap shot Trevor Lawrence took from the Texans. And what do fans feel about that? They probably don't have a lot to say about it because Lawrence wasn't playing too well before that. And of note to all of this is the Jaguars hadn't scored an offensive possession, a touchdown, in about 30 possessions straight now. So that is not good. Rich like go ahead and say a great word. I could care less what you think about me. You're talking stupid is what you're doing, but that doesn't bother you or not what it is that I'm trying. So take it how you want, and remember this, your mama like it. Chump. So anyway, you got people, what's strange about Jacksonville, and if you can see over here, the fans, they still in the and people are starting to leave. I don't understand. How you doing, Red Revenge? I'm okay. Chump, making comments right before you and stuff. That's the thing about this social media, say anything, But you know, you won't say nothing to people when you're in their face, and that's common about it. The reason why it doesn't bother me. But what's up on my side of the world? I'm just here talking a little, marveling how the Jaguars fans be running out of the game before the game is over. I never did understand that. But, right now, I believe the score is still tied 6-6. I got to go and check on that, but pretty interesting today. Been an interesting weekend of football on three levels, and right now the Jaguars are trying to, save face. A lot of people. It's up to you. Your connection is a little bad. Is it spotty? Sometimes when I have a bad connection, it goes showing like pixelating, and I don't know why it does that. But I have to get that straight. But I don't too much longer. I just want to come on and say a few words about yesterday and how things worked out. BYU survived Houston last night, so that eliminated Colorado, so they won't be going to the Big 12 championship. But it will be Arizona State and Iowa State, which will be a pretty good matchup. And what I'm hearing, well, I'm under a lot of trees, so maybe that's the reason. Is it static voice or just static from the pictures? Okay, I don't know what it is. I believe it's because I'm under these trees. I really don't have anywhere to go right now. I'm kind of in a bad spot. But like I said, I'm not talk too long. Jaguars, it's a tight game with the Texans, which they always are. But say Colorado, they won't be making it to the conference championship game, but that'll be Arizona State and Iowa State. But I'm hearing that this Alamo Bowl in San Antonio, they come down there and play BYU. So when we'll find out who's going to go where in the next 10 days. So Dion did a great job. A lot of people think he's going to stay in Colorado because he's getting these great recruits and all. But I'm telling you right now, like I've been telling you for the last 4 years, Dion is only going where his sons are going. And if his sons are leaving Colorado, he's leaving Colorado. And as far as I'm concerned, you can book that. A lot of people don't know, but I do. All right, let me move out here in the open space. Static. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to set up and do my little Fango media. If you guys are interested in hearing comments from fans from around the NFL and how they feel about the action that they saw, log in Fango media and look up the latest videos, and you can find out from all 32 teams how the fans feel about what's going on with their team. And I'll be doing the Jaguars, do that little production, and then I'm going to switch back live to talk to fans even more on this platform from there. So then I'm going to sign off and I'm going to relocate, but I'll get back with you guys shortly after the game is over with. This is Sports for Real.